The following program contains inconvenient truth and controversial topics that may be offensive to some audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Radio from the heart of America now.
Welcome back. We're at the top of the second hour of Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, and welcome back. I'm glad that you're in the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio. We are at the top of the second hour, and this ought to be a barn-burning hour for you. We've got Mike Zullo with us in the Oval Office today, and of course, most of our audience knows when I say the name Mike Zullo, you know exactly who we're talking about. For those that you don't know who I'm talking about, let me just say he was the lead investigator of the Obama fraud case of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office under Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Mike Zullo conducted that investigation officially. I think it was about 5 years, wasn't it, Mike?
Yeah, it was, Carl.
Yeah. And the bottom line is the conclusion of it was presented. Now, there were several hour-long press conferences, 3 to be exact, through those 5 years. But the concluding press conference was held in December of 2016. That's right, yeah. 2016. I had to stop and think through this. Man, all my dates are running together. December 2016, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. I was there that day, and the place was packed out with media and audience and sheriff's officials. Mike Zullo and Sheriff Arpaio ran that press conference. And as I said, I was in Phoenix and there at the press conference. And so I observed it with my own little eyes. And Mike Zullo there presented for a little over an hour the final findings, at least what he, could present to the world. Now, there's still a whole lot that he's got back in under lock and key and in safe hands, but he basically presented the final evidence that the long-form birth certificate placed on the Obama White House website by the Obama administration is an absolute that, but they actually are in possession of at least one of the documents that was used to produce that fraudulent birth certificate, a birth certificate from a person by the name of Johanna Ani. And not only that, but that all of their forensic findings and evidence was presented then or given to 2 international document examination agencies, one in the United States, one in Italy. Both of these companies are highly credentialed and are highly valued in court systems and police departments, law enforcement agencies in their various jurisdictions, and they testify in the highest courts in the land in their various jurisdictions. So these are top-notch agencies and companies, and both of them returned signed affidavits to the investigation of Mike Zullo, Sheriff Arpaio, that the document is a fabrication. It's a complete fabrication. And then Mike Zullo spent that hour with a video presentation of showing how the thing was done. It was manufactured from the ground up. Now, Mike and I have spent many, many hours with our Freedom Friday audience explaining how that's a violation of about 5 different federal laws. To produce it, to use it, to present it, to put it on a government website, to actually gain office through a document that is claimed to be your legally identifying document when it's a manufactured document. Those are federal crimes. And so now, Mike Zullo, I'm setting you up because I'm going to turn you loose. But now, folks, so now you know who Mike Zullo is. And in the meantime, people have been asking, well, gosh, where's Mike Zullo? Is all this just gone away? Is the birth certificate issue just gone? Well, for people that listen to Freedom Friday, you know it hasn't just gone away. We've explained over and over ad nauseum what we were up against, what Mike, I say we because I was kind of the media guy for him, but what we were up against for 5 years. And now that Donald Trump's in office, now we see the deep state at work. Now we see that the media is complicit. Now we see that 3-letter agencies were complicit. Now that we see that Congress and the deep state complicit. And on we go. So who were they going to take it to? Now Donald Trump's in office, the guy that literally pulled the trigger on getting Obama to put that fraudulent birth certificate up there back in 2011 in the first place. Now he's the president. And what has happened? Deep State has unloaded on him. Mueller investigation, Russian collusion. Now we find out the FBI put spies in the campaign. And I mean, it just goes on and deeper and deeper and nastier and nastier. And the Obama DOJ and other entities were responsible for trying to put Sheriff Arpaio in jail on trumped-up charges. Donald Trump finally came in and pardoned him, which drove the deep state into a frenzy, because Mike Zullo and I have been saying, I'm convinced, and I'm speaking for Mike Zullo now, and if I'm wrong here, Mike, you can correct me, of course, but we've talked about this. I'm convinced this birth certificate issue is one of the foundational issues to the corruption and fraud and intrigue and subversion of our nation. It's the foundation. There was a man in the White House that might not even be from here, but we know his documents were fake. And now, Mike, I'm going to read this and then I'm going to turn you loose. Just a few days ago, Donald Trump tweets, I'm reading it. I hereby demand and will do so officially tomorrow. He tweeted this May the 20th. All right, so that's just like 5 days ago. So he said the next day he would do it. I hereby demand and will do so officially tomorrow that the Department of Justice look into whether or not the FBI/DOJ, that is under Obama, infiltrated or surveilled the Trump campaign for political purposes. And if any such demands or requests were made by people within the Obama administration, exclamation point on the end of that tweet. So now, Mike, now Donald Trump has officially ordered an official DOJ investigation into the FBI and basically into Barack Obama himself and the Obama White House, because Donald Trump told us right after he went in office, he said, look, I'm being spied on. My phones are being tapped. We got leaks. There's something going on. Somebody's spying on us. And what did the mainstream media and the deep state do, Mike? They made fun of him. They mocked him. They lampooned him. Now we know he was right all along, Mike. Talk to us about it and tell us how this ties into the birth certificate and where we're headed with all of this.
Well, Carl, he was right all along, and he was right back in 2011 where he was questioning that birth certificate. That birth certificate is, in my best law enforcement vernacular, a fake.
Yeah.
It's phony. It's phony. Yeah. It's a fugazi. It's whatever you want to call it. It's not real. And we've proved it. And we've proved it time and time again. But this is the most interesting thing, a development that has really intrigued me. And when I contacted you within hours of it starting to happen, the president gave that order that you just read, and he wants to launch an investigation. Now, this is the first time that the president of the United States in this term has unilaterally went out and demanded the DOJ open up an investigation.
Right.
Now, that must have unnerved people that deal with this birth certificate issue, because all of a sudden my email inbox started to blow up. I got emails from the Italian corporation that did the analysis for us on one side of the continent on the document and came to the conclusion that it's a fabrication. That people were engaging them, all of a sudden opening up dialogue again, challenging the findings, trying to get the worked product, i.e. their professional reports that I have not released yet, trying to get copies of that information, people making contact with me, again challenging our findings, and trying to make arrangements to meet with me.
Yeah.
But the thing that was most incredible in this, and I'm telling you, these people are not the sharpest people in the shed, in the drawer, man. They're not the sharpest knives. They hit me with information that the only way you could possibly know, and some of it you didn't even know when I shared it with you.
Right.
The only way you would have known this is if you monitor my personal communications.
Yes. Well, do you know, the deep state doesn't do that, Mike. The deep state doesn't do that.
Deep state doesn't do any of that.
Yeah, but go ahead. I interrupted you.
The only way they could have known this, and it wasn't just one, sentence. This is a couple different times throughout bodies of emails where they're making reference to things that there is no way for them to know. So what is that telling you? Who's running scared?
Mm-hmm.
You've got the President of the United States that now under his belt knows that with the stroke of a pen, he can order an investigation. And all of a sudden, people start coming out of the woodwork again, trying to challenge a press conference and findings that happened over a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to challenge it all over again. And this time, the way they're trying to challenge it, they're trying to give me alternatives, almost saying we agree with you, but we don't agree with everything that you said. We think everything you said is wrong. However, we think we have the solution. Well, that's a game.
Yes.
That's a game.
Obfuscation.
That's to bait me in to have you try to confuse me or get information from me because you can't figure out how we did what we did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, folks, go ahead, Mike. You finish, and then I just want to kind of recap, but you finish. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Carl, that this right now to me is a validation that we are right about that certificate.
Oh, yeah.
And this is going to go deeper because I personally believe, aside from Obama, all roads lead to John Brennan with this birth certificate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're going to, listen, that's a powerful statement you just made, but it goes to a show that we did some time back wherein we spoke about CIA, DHS, fingerprints all over the birth certificate. And so we'll refresh our audience about that here in just a few moments because you just made a powerful statement that all roads will probably lead right back to John Brennan. That's powerful. But let me just restate this, Mike, then we're going to take a quick time out. I'm just going to restate it very quickly, and you tell me if I'm off base or on base. So the bottom line is, Trump is the one in 2011. That starts an investigation through the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. You're called in to lead it. You discover that there's problems with it. You investigate it for 5 years. You come to the final conclusion with all of these document expert agencies involved and all the forensics, plus the birth certificate you have from which it was made. You got all this evidence. You're ready to go with it. But in the meantime, you're dealing with deep state. But then who wins the election? Donald Trump. Boom. He's in there. What do? They're terrified of him, so they start Mueller investigations and intrigue. But what does Donald Trump find out? Boom! In the middle of it, he finds out he's been right all along. They have been spying on him. They had spies in his camp. They had leakers. They were monitoring his communications. The President of the United States. Now he knows it, and so he calls for a DOJ investigation on the FBI and the Obama administration, and within a day and a half, your communications go berserk with people who haven't given a rip about you for the last year. Now, at Donald Trump's suggestion, well, not suggestion, actually an order, demand, I hereby demand, at the stroke of a pen, now these people are contacting you out of the thin air, trying to obfuscate what you've done, question what you've done, demanding that you turn your work product over, meet them in some location. They've got more information. It's surreal, Mike. But what you and I have been through, stuff we can't even talk about. We know what's going on here with the deep state. They are terrified of this. They know that this is the foundation to this whole big lie of the Obama administration and what the deep state's been doing. Am I anywhere near correct, Mike?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I think at that point, these people are looking back and going, if there is, I ain't even so much an IG, but if there is a special prosecutor ever called in on this, it's going to be game over. Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, Carl, and you know this as well as I do. Those people like McCabe or Strzok or Page, they're not going to want to do 25 years in Leavenworth. They're going to flip.
Yeah.
They're going to flip about that and a lot of other things. And let me point something else out to you. I don't have a clock in front of me. Do you have time?
Well, Mike, we're going to, listen, let's take a time out. Let's just use that as a teaser, and when we come back, we'll do that, because I already hear the music playing, and Mike, you can't hear it, so I'm sorry. Okay, so folks, we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, Mike Zullo just said, and I'm going to tell you something else, Carl. So if you want to find out what else he's going to tell me, hang on, because he's going to be here to the top of this whole next hour.
Please remain seated until the ride comes to a complete stop. Welcome back to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, welcome back. Yes, we are back from sea to shining sea, and this ride is not going to come to a complete stop today. So, Mike Zullo, right when we went to our break, you just said, and I'm going to tell you something else, Carl. And see, folks, you got to understand, the person on the phone that's calling in, they can't hear the music as it starts going out. So Mike had no idea we were getting ready to go to break. That's why he was going like a freight train down the road. And I'm going to tell you something else, but I had to break in. So, Mike, tell us something else.
Well, if you look at the whole thing with the dialogue between Lisa Page and Strzok and the emails and the Clinton emails and all those emails, there are most definitely going to be emails that were circulated and or text messages at the time this birth certificate issue was hot and heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know for an admission from the White House Chief of Staff back then that they had discussions about this birth certificate every day in the White House. Now, I had gotten information from the White House correspondent years ago, and if you go back and you remember when this was hot and heavy, what did they do? They ended up taking out bin Laden, and that became the news.
Yeah, right at that same time, yep.
Valerie Jarrett was beside herself that they were doing that, because his understanding from what he overheard was, and this is hearsay, you'll never be able to use it, but from what he understood, is they wanted to get the issue away from the birth certificate.
Yeah.
And this was the perfect reason to take the narrative completely off the table.
Yeah. And I'm going to say one more time, Mike, to the audience. Folks, if this birth certificate wasn't fake, why would the White House have even cared?
No, you wouldn't care.
No.
You wouldn't even be talking about it.
No, you wouldn't even talk about it. But instead, they're talking about it every day. They're planning. They're planning smoke screens. They're planning, gaslighting techniques. I mean, why? Only guilty people do that, Mike.
Well, exactly. And you don't go out there and continually make jokes about something like this every time you're at a correspondence dinner, or every time you get the opportunity to make a joke about it, because it would be the farthest thing from your mind. It would be a settled issue.
Right.
You just don't do it. So, everything points to guilt as far as this document is concerned. And when you start looking at what the deep state is doing now, when you see the way that they are coming out, and literally now, the Brennans, the Clappers, the Comeys of the world, lying on national television to the American people, and the lies that they're telling, a fourth grader could see through this.
Oh, my gosh. I know I told somebody the other day, it was like listening to a seventh grader when, I think it was Brennan, it was either Brennan or Clapper, when they were finally confronted with having a spy in the Trump campaign. One of them, whichever one it was, said, well, America should be glad we did that, because what? And remember when Trump tweeted him back, said, I'm not glad, it's illegal.
Well, Carl, the definition of a spy is a person, and this is the definition, a person who secretly collects and reports information on the activities, movements, and plans of an enemy or a competitor.
There you go.
That's a spy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, you can play the semantical games all you want. The truth is a spy. And look, think about this. You've got this whole idea now they're trying to put forth, this new narrative, that they were concerned about Russian interference, truly concerned about Russian interference. And you got some creditable information. And we're gonna make believe for this illustration that they had creditable information. Here's what you would do. You would cultivate as much of that as you can, and then you would go to the candidate himself, and you would tell him it's a national security issue. You would tell him what you would like to do is implant in his campaign an undercover agent to pose in whatever position that would have him close to receiving and or receiving this information when these parties surface. And those people would then be dealing with an undercover FBI agent who would be taking that information from them and eventually getting enough that they would arrest those people. It's no different than when you see the little things on the news where one spouse wants to have another spouse murdered, and they send in an undercover cop.
Right.
And he poses as the hitman.
Right.
So you wouldn't have to sit over there in the dark looking around. You would put somebody in there that you can build a rock-solid case and have them collect the information that you were passing.
Right.
And that's what they would have done, but they didn't do that. They didn't do anything like that. What they wanted to do is they wanted to set him up.
Yeah. Yeah.
They wanted to set him up. You're running afoul on a lot of entrapment law when you come into this.
And Mike, that's
what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and I'm convinced it's over the birth certificate, and here's why. Because they didn't hate Donald Trump with this vitriol until he was winning the White House. They thought Hillary Clinton was going to go in, and all of this would have been burned and buried, and the deep state would have been in charge, and it would have been Party Town USA. But Donald Trump wins. Donald Trump used to give money to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Donald Trump was one of their fair-haired donors. But now he's in charge, and he's the one that got the birth certificate thing going. Now he's in the Oval Office as the commander-in-chief, Mike. I'm telling you, I'm convinced this is what it's about. Mike, you don't hear it, but the music is playing. We're at the bottom of the hour. When we come back, we've got so much more to talk about. We've got Brennan, CIA. We got some stuff with Dennis Montgomery. All of this ties into, and I believe that Donald Trump calling for this investigation may uncover some of this stuff. So can you hang around for the next segment?
Yeah, I can, sure.
Okay, good deal. Folks, you are listening Freedom Friday. Gulf Coast Talk Radio, you're in the Oval Office. Mike Zullo. He's with us. He'll be here for this next segment. We've got a lot more to talk about. You certainly don't want to miss this. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this timeout. And we are in the Oval Office. Thank you for joining us today. And Mike Zullo is my guest. And so, Mike, listen, we've got another whole segment here at the bottom of the second hour. Before we've got so many things to do. We were talking off air. Before we do that, though, just quickly retell, because you said something in the first 30 minutes that I think is pretty profound. Because how can it be that for months and months, we're rocking along, we're waiting on, we got to get Sheriff Arpaio out of jail. All right, well, we did that. and then he's running for senator. Okay, so we're doing that. And then, in the meantime, we got to get the Mueller investigation, the deep state, and Trump, is he even going to survive the presidency? And I don't mean somebody's going to kill him. I just mean, they're trying to get him out, trying to impeach him, everything else. So we're waiting on all of that. So pretty much the deep state started leaving you alone. For months and months, you're not hearing anything from anybody, which you were loving, until the other day when Donald Trump says, I want a DOJ investigation on FBI and putting spies in my campaign, and I want to know if this goes to the Obama White House. And when he said the word Obama White House, I think it freaked out the deep state, because what that means is, if you're literally investigating the Obama White House, how can you not run into the foundational problem to the whole thing, especially if you're the president now and you're the one that started the whole birth certificate thing in the first place? How can he not see the beauty of this is Donald Trump never has to come out and say, I'm going to investigate the birth certificate. All he has to say is, I'm going to investigate Obama and what he's been doing in that White House. Well, anyway, the deep state, I think they know that, Mike. And so here you are, months and months and months, quiet as a mouse, within a day and a half of Donald Trump saying, I'm going to investigate Obama. Tell the folks again what happened to you.
Well, right after the president issued that order, it was not even a day and a half. My email box starts blowing up with inquiries from people, or people trying to get direct contact with me. 4 labs over in Italy starts to email me that they're getting people contacting them, wanting the work product, or wanting to dialogue with them and have them explore, quote, their findings, or telling them why they're wrong, in which they're not.
Yes.
And all that went on within a matter of a day and a half. And what was very interesting in the whole thing, like I said earlier, in the bodies of those emails, there's information that they're trying to feed back to me that the only way you could possibly know is if you monitor my own personal communications. Because, Carl, when I shared it with you on the phone a couple days ago, you had no idea of some of these things.
Right.
So that tells me, they're not that sharp.
Yeah.
You start putting in stuff that you're gathering through other means,
yeah,
and you put that into a body of an email, it's kind of stupid. Unless you're trying to send me a message by telling me you're monitoring me. Well, I really don't care if you are.
Right. They either were trying to send you a message, or they just stumbled over all the information they have collected and all the intel they have collected on you, the investigation and everything else, and they just stumbled and said something they shouldn't have said, because as soon as they said it, that was a key to you. Instantly, you realized nobody knows that but you, unless they've been monitoring your communications.
And that's about the size of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it completely looks like to me. Yeah. And if you look at this thing, like we were talking about, how I believe all roads are going to lead back to Brennan. Think about this: you have a White House that is in such control of the United States, spy agencies and assets and capabilities, that they would actually put spies in and monitor communications during the presidential campaign. Do you think covering up this birth certificate thing isn't something that was on their agenda?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely was.
Oh,
of course
yes,
it was.
Of course. Because once this all comes out and the whole world sees that the whole thing was a fake and a fraud, I mean, brother, can you imagine the political heads that will roll? I mean, there may be people jumping out of windows. There may be people that what's the word to use? I mean, there may be hits put out on people. People are going to roll. People are going to flip. People are going to know that they're headed to prison for the rest of their life. They're going to start turning evidence. I mean, this whole thing could just blow up overnight once it gets going.
Well, and let's go, and speaking about, homicide, let's not forget about Quarles Harris, the individual that was involved with getting information off of passports, that was working with federal investigators, going to go in and testify on a Monday morning and a Sunday night. He slumped over a wheel with 2 bullets in the back of his head.
Well, and the only woman that handled the birth certificate, Loretta Fuddy, she dies. And I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean,
it does. And after a while, the list gets long.
Yeah.
But go back. Let's just look at Brennan for a minute. Here's a guy that spent 25 years in the CIA. And he was sworn in as CIA director, I think, in early March, 2013. And then he serves in that capacity until the election, obviously. But going back earlier than that, Brennan, after his 25 years, he leaves government service for a couple of years, and he becomes chairman and CEO of 2 different companies. One of them is called Intelligence National Security Alliance, and the other one he's CEO of is the Analysis Corporation. Well, the Analysis Corporation is the company that was identified that had the employees who were responsible for the breach of the passport records of Obama, Clinton, and McCain.
Right.
Now, that's John Brennan. And when that breach was occurring, John Brennan was still CEO of that company. He got out of that to become an administrator, I think, for Homeland Security, an advisor or something in 2009. So he's still connected to that company. And that company was a small company. It had less than 100 employees at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have a breach, and that's where Quarles Harris, who was, I don't think he was an employee, if my memory serves, but he got wrapped up in this because he was receiving passport information and doing something with phony credit cards, and he was working with federal investigators, and he was set to testify in April of 2008, and he is basically assassinated as he's sitting in his car, still an unsolved homicide.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what was that guy going to be talking about? What was everybody so afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
Right, because there's no other reason to kill somebody over credit card fraud.
No.
So, you have that component to this. And then don't forget, when we went and we tried to find the records of immigration and naturalization service cards filled out on airplanes for passengers coming in, flying into the country from outside the United States, and we were looking specifically for the month of August 1961, which would have been Obama's birth date, all of a sudden, that whole month is gone from the National Archives microfilm records with no explanation.
Yeah.
Not even the month. It's 10 days, actually. I correct myself. It's 10 days out of that month, completely black. You don't see anything, and they pick up on the 11th. So, you start to look at these things, and you start saying, wow, this is just getting strange. Well, then you start working your way down to Clapper. And now keep in mind, Michael Steele, he was the British spy that's responsible with Fusion GPS for the phony dossier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, James Clapper was head of the NSA, director of the NSA. From 2006 to 2007, however, he worked for a couple different companies. One of them was some kind of satellite company, and he was also doing business with and was director of operations as the chief operating officer for a British military intelligence company. And he also was coordinating efforts with a U.S.-based subsidiary of that company before he became director of NSA, and I believe that was in 2010. So what do you have here? You've got Clapper, who's got intelligence ties to the British. You've got Michael Steele. Why is it Michael Steele? Why did they pick Michael Steele to do the dirty work on the phony dossier? John Brennan takes care of the passport record scrubbing, which was going to be a problem with Obama. And the reason why I say that is, let's look at the Selective Service Card that we also proved was fraudulently created back in 2011 when we discovered that. You've got John Brennan takes care of the scrubbing of those passport records. You've got British spies working on a dossier. We've got John McCain hand-delivering the dossier. You've got Clapper and Brennan are the two people from the intelligence agencies that you see paraded around on opposition networks, CNN, MSNBC, lying through their teeth every time they're open their mouth. Then you have James Comey. James Comey, who gets appointed to the FBI in 2013. Now, if you look at James Comey's history, James Comey was basically, a lawyer here, a lawyer there, worked in the Southern District of New York or something to that effect. He's got, lawyer jobs. It's my understanding that guy's worth almost $11 million. Where'd you get $11 million? And you get a guy that comes out on television trying to exalt himself as being the only honest broker in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Well, there's a big problem with that, because when he gave that whole rendition about Hillary Clinton's emails, he basically indicted her, and then he flipped the script.
Yeah, which indicted himself, his own integrity. Yeah.
So, and then, I'm not going to go into detail, but you've got Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch. And the whole point of this, Carl, is that birth certificate investigation, because these connections were not known to us in 2011 when this started.
Right.
That whole deep state operation was in play. I could have come with blood stains on that birth certificate, and it never would have taken root.
Right.
They never would have allowed it to come to fruition. They never would have looked into it. They would have done anything they could to bury it.
Yeah.
And i.e., that's the same stuff that's happened to us now with the intelligence information that we garnered with our contacts with our interactions with Montgomery, who was a CIA contractor, who, by the way, the information he told me 3 years ago is all coming out in the news today.
Yes.
Who we did manage, through Larry Klayman, to get him to a federal judge who ultimately he went to the FBI under two forms of immunity. Who does he tell? Jim Baker.
Yeah.
The guy right under James Comey.
Yeah.
For 2.5, 3 years now,
there's
been nothing done with his information.
Yeah. Yeah, which is also pretty indicting, because when you take that kind of information and nothing is done or said, it's like it. But of course, that was under the Comey administration. Listen,
and here's
go ahead.
If I could really quick, here's something else. Montgomery's name is in the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page.
Yes.
And Strzok, he talking to a group, and he's trying to dismiss the Montgomery stuff. And what happens is, like it happened in a lot of other areas, you don't see the remaining replies or tweet or text messages.
Right.
They're blanks. They're
Right.
just, all of a sudden it just jumps to something else.
Right. But
So don't tell me they didn't know about Montgomery.
Yeah.
Don't tell me they didn't have discussions about Montgomery.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Mike, we got to take a time out. When we come back, we've got several more things that you and I were talking about off air a little while ago, so we'll open some of those cans of worms. Folks, Mike Zullo is in the house with us. And we do have some more remaining information and some remaining time, so don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick time. Mike Zullo, it's good to have you with us today. So Mike, listen, we were talking off air a few moments ago. We've only got about 7 or 8 minutes. There's several more things we need to do, but we need to talk about. But I just was going to ask you, and you can say no to this if you want to, but you were telling me some stuff that you were thinking about releasing some brand new information, at least for public consumption. And there's so much that you know about this that you have not released. But do you want to do that, yes or no, before we go to something else?
Yeah, we'll do it, Carl. Let me do it.
Okay, go ahead.
During the investigation of the birth certificate, we explored a plethora of different ways that this thing could have been put together, and we believe that it is a combination of copy, scan. In other words, you're running off a sheet of paper, doing some things to it, and then you're running it back through a scanner again, making a hard copy, then scanning it back in again, making some changes digitally, then taking it in and out like that. And you've got links and layers, and you've got about 7 or 8 layers. My memory doesn't serve me well on that anymore. But you've got layers in this document. Well, during the investigation, using some very sophisticated analysis equipment, there is a peculiar smudge, and I'm not going to tell you where it is on the document, that we observed. And through this analysis, it is looking like, and I'm not going to say it's 110%, but we believe that on one of the layers inside the document, that smudge appears only on a specific layer. And that smudge, when it's digitally enhanced, literally looks like a partial latent fingerprint on that particular layer. Now, you could argue, well, how could it be on a piece of paper? How could you see it? Well, if there was a partial latent on the scanner bed at that time where they laid the document to do one of those copy scan procedures that I'm telling you about, it would have been picked up. So there's something inside the layering that also points to the document being constructed and not merely a scanner and a scan made to upload to the internet. So there are people out there that are worried.
Yeah.
There's people that know that we know.
Yeah.
And I think this is what you're starting to see happen, is they know it's going to go back to the foundational lie of the presidency of the United States.
Yes, and people are going to start flipping because people are not going to want to go to prison for the rest of their lives over this if they can make a deal, and they will. And Mike, just a few days ago, at dailycaller.com, here's a headline. Sources say FBI agents want Congress to issue them subpoenas so they can reveal the Bureau's dirt. Underneath it says, sources tell the Daily Caller several FBI agents, want congressional subpoenas to testify about the agency's problems. The sources claim there is demand within the FBI to prosecute former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe. They say the Bureau has become totally politicized. So here you go. There's an example of the flipping that's already beginning to happen. People are out to cover themselves, to protect themselves, their families, their assets, their resources, their lives. And now, under a whole new administration, a whole new way of thinking, people are starting to flip. And I think that's why you got your phone call in a day and a half after Trump demands that the DOJ starts investigating even Obama and the FBI.
I'm in 100% agreement with you. And Carl, look, the FBI is getting broad rushed. Look, there are some great patriots in the FBI, great cops in the FBI, people that love this country, want to protect this country. But you know as well as I do from having a job in law enforcement, you got to be a good soldier. Because if you start making waves, it's not just the heat you're going to take. It's what happens to you, the way they force you out, the way they come after you, the way they look for excuses to take you out or take you down. So what these people are asking for is they want to come forward, give us a subpoena so we have the legal protections, the federal protections that we're entitled to.
Right.
And I hope to God they grant that, because when these people start telling the truth, it's going to be the truth.
Yes, yes. And just remember, Dennis Montgomery went to who? The FBI. So there are agents within the FBI that know all about this birth certificate, and they know the truth. Well, Mike, thank you for giving us an hour of your time. We got to have you back. We've got so much more to talk about, man. These are exciting times.
All right, Carl, I'll keep you posted, let you know if we get any more emails.
Okay, yeah, good deal. We'll stay in contact. Right. Talk to you later. Nobody's listening to us, Mike. We don't have to worry about it, right? Every time Mike Zullo and I talk or email, we know people are listening and watching. Folks, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. We're going to keep you posted on all of this. It's going to get hot and heavy as the years go by, I guarantee you. But in the meantime, this is why you listen to Gulf Coast Talk Radio, Freedom Friday, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio. Carl Gallups. We'll see you next Friday. God bless you.
American Survival Wholesale is proud to sponsor this ministry and their efforts to shed light on the issues that face our nation. As a veteran and Christian-owned and operated company, we support the freedom to express these Christian principles. We all understand the importance of being prepared. After witnessing the devastation of Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and the wildfires that affected so many, please support this ministry by clicking on the link below and check out the amazing alt media package for our listeners. Plus, if you use the promo code PNN Radio, that's PNN Radio, you will receive free shipping, a savings of up to $200. Just click on the link below, but please do it today. Your support means so much to this channel.
The Satanists wanted to install their own tribute, a pagan idol, on the Capitol grounds, right next to the Ten Commandments.
Billions around the planet are witnessing a world in the grasp of sadistic spiritual darkness. This unholy alliance has infected our governments, our religious institutions, and our societies. The world appears to be unraveling. But can the evil behind these dark supernatural forces be defeated? Is everything playing out just as the Bible predicted it will in the final days? At last, you can know the answers to mankind's most urgent questions and learn your destiny among today's events in the new, unprecedented work taking the prophecy world by storm. Gods and Thrones, Nakash, Forgotten Prophecy, and the Return of the Elohim by best-selling author, former decorated law enforcement officer, and senior pastor Carl Gallups. This changes everything. Available now wherever fine books are sold.